I used to believe I had it all. A loving husband, a best friend I could trust with my life, and a marriage most people envied. Liam and I had been together for 8 years, married for 5. Chloe had been my best friend since college. She was there through every milestone, my engagement, my wedding, my first promotion. People would often joke we were inseparable, and honestly, I believed it. Looking back, I can't decide if I was blind or just too naive to see what was right in front of me. Liam was charming. The kind of man who could walk into a room and command attention without even trying. He had a way of making everyone feel like they mattered, especially me. Or so I thought. In the early years, he left notes for me on the kitchen counter, sent flowers to my office just because, and made me laugh on my worst days. Chloe adored him too, always calling him her favorite couple's friend. The 3 of us would have dinner every other weekend, share vacations, and celebrate holidays together. It was effortless. But perfection has a way of cracking, slowly and quietly. The first sign came like a whisper I couldn't quite catch. Liam's phone, once left carelessly on countertops, was now always face down or tucked in his pocket. He started working late. Deadlines. Meetings. Business trips that didn't add up. I told myself it was normal. People get busy. Stress piles up. Marriage isn't always roses and sunsets. Chloe reassured me constantly, reminding me how lucky I was to have a man like Liam. He adores you, she'd say, pouring another glass of wine. I clung to her words like a lifeline. I noticed how Chloe would linger after dinners, offering to help clean up even when I told her not to. She'd laugh a little too loud at Liam's jokes, touch his arm when she spoke. Innocent gestures I brushed off because this was Chloe. My Chloe. She knew me better than anyone. I trusted her the way you trust the air you breathe. Months passed and the distance between Liam and me widened. Conversations turned into nods. Texts went unanswered. His eyes stopped meeting mine across the room. I felt it, deep in my gut, a gnawing discomfort I couldn't name. I told Chloe one night as we sat on my couch. She pulled me into a hug and told me I was overthinking. She reminded me of how many couples hit rough patches. You two are solid, she promised. I believed her because I wanted to. Then came the night everything shifted. Liam came home late, the scent of perfume clinging to his shirt, not mine. His excuses felt rehearsed. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. The knot in my stomach tightened, but I stayed silent. Chloe texted me minutes later, asking if everything was okay. She said she had a weird feeling about Liam too and maybe I should talk to him. I felt grateful for her concern, clueless to the irony. I tried to convince myself I was imagining things. That the distance, the late nights, the lies I wasn't brave enough to confront, were temporary. Marriages have rough patches. Chloe kept telling me that. And God help me, I let her words fill the empty spaces where trust used to live. One evening, while Liam was in the shower, his phone buzzed. A message preview flashed across the screen. Can't wait to see you tonight. I need you. My hands shook as I picked it up. No name, just a number. I couldn't stop myself. I opened the message thread and scrolled. Months of texts. Plans. Complaints about me. Promises. And then the voicemail. One Liam had sent the night before. Staying with my affair for now, but I'll be back. My breath left my lungs. My vision blurred. I replayed it, the words digging into me like shards of glass. His voice, casual, cruel, and certain. I needed to know who. My heart prayed it was a stranger, someone meaningless. But the messages hinted otherwise. Familiar places. Familiar jokes. And then a message with a nickname only one person called him. See you soon, babe. Love you. See. Chloe. The room tilted. My stomach twisted, threatening to empty itself. Every memory of her, laughing in my kitchen, hugging me at my wedding, crying with me over heartbreaks, turned rotten. The betrayal wasn't just Liam's. It was hers too. My best friend. My sister in every way that mattered. I wanted to scream, to break something, to make sense of a world that suddenly made none. But instead I sat there, the voicemail playing on a loop, the words etching themselves into my bones. I didn't cry. I couldn't. The shock was a cocoon, wrapping me in numbness. I remembered every time she'd asked about our marriage, every dinner where she sat across from me, pretending to care. The lies layered so thick I could barely see the truth beneath them. It wasn't just the affair. It was the years of deception. The fact that she looked me in the eye, knowing what she was doing, pretending to be my friend. Liam emerged from the bathroom, towel around his waist, humming to himself. His phone in my hand, his betrayal in plain sight, and still, he looked at me like I was the one invading his privacy. I didn't confront him then. Not yet. I needed a moment. A plan. Revenge wasn't what I wanted. Closure was. I wanted to look them both in the eye and watch them crumble under the weight of what they did to me. I took a deep breath, set the phone down, and forced a smile. He didn't notice the tremble in my hands or the dead look in my eyes. He kissed my cheek, said he had to meet a client, and left. I let him go. Because now, I wasn't the clueless wife. I was the woman who knew everything. And they had no idea what was coming. I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept playing the same question over and over. How long had they been laughing behind my back? Every word Chloe ever said to me replayed with venom. Every late-night phone call, every concerned look, every moment she told me to trust Liam made my skin crawl. I trusted the wrong people, and it was time to face it head-on. Pretending everything was fine was no longer an option. The next morning, I acted like nothing had happened. I needed them both to feel safe in their lives just a little longer. I texted Chloe, asking if she wanted to grab coffee later, keeping my words light, pretending to need advice about Liam. She replied within seconds, eager as always. I could almost hear the fake sympathy in her typed words. I told her I had something important to show her, something she needed to hear in person. She agreed without hesitation. My heart pounded all day, not from fear but from a sick anticipation. I wasn't looking for a confrontation. I wanted to see the truth written on her face. I wanted to watch the moment the ground disappeared from under her feet. For months, she'd been stealing from me, the man I loved, the life I thought was real. It was only fair to steal her sense of control in return. By the time evening came, I wasn't nervous anymore. I was calm, sharper than I'd felt in months. I met Chloe at our usual spot, the same cafe where she cried to me about her past breakups, the same table where we planned my bridal shower. She looked the same as always, perfectly put together, smiling, pretending. I hated that face now. We ordered our drinks, made meaningless small talk. She asked about Liam, her tone gentle, curious. I stared at her, wondering how she managed to act so unaffected. She had no idea I was about to rip her perfect little world to pieces. When our drinks arrived, I took out my phone and placed it on the table between us. Her eyes flickered to it. I told her I wanted her to hear something. No warning. No build-up. I tapped play on the voicemail. Liam's voice filled the space between us. Staying with my affair for now, but I'll be back. Chloe's face went pale, her breath catching mid-sentence. Her hands trembled, her eyes darting around like she could escape the words hanging in the air. The color drained from her face so quickly it made her freckles stand out against her skin. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. I stayed silent. I wanted her to sit with it. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Her composure shattered. She reached for my hand, but I pulled it away. Her eyes filled with tears, and she started shaking. She stammered something about it not being what it sounded like, but we both knew it was. I didn't need her excuses. I told her to tell me how long it had been going on. At first, she denied it, tried to spin it as a mistake, but her voice cracked when she realized there was no way out. 3 years. That's how long. Longer than I could have imagined. It wasn't a drunken one-night mistake. It was deliberate. Calculated. A secret relationship with the man I married, woven through birthdays, anniversaries, holidays. My best friend and my husband living a second life I was never meant to see. The tears came fast then, her hands covering her face as her body shook. People turned to look, but I didn't care. I let her fall apart. She clutched her chest, her breathing uneven, panic taking over. I could see the exact second she lost control of herself. She collapsed forward, her head hitting the table before she slumped to the floor. The cafe erupted in alarm, voices rising, chairs scraping back. A woman rushed to help, a man called for an ambulance. I sat still, watching it unfold. For a moment, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity. Just emptiness. Liam came running minutes later, his face twisted in horror when he saw Chloe on the floor and me sitting there, phone still on the table, still playing the voicemail on repeat. His eyes met mine, and for the first time, he didn't look smug or indifferent. He looked afraid. He knelt beside Chloe, calling her name. She came to slowly, eyes unfocused. Then she whispered it. The final blow I wasn't ready for, though some part of me suspected it was coming. I'm pregnant. The room tilted again. The nausea hit instantly. The betrayal wasn't finished with me yet. It had one final, cruel twist. Not only had they destroyed my marriage, they'd created something permanent from it. I got up without a word, grabbed my bag, and walked out. I didn't look back. I didn't want to hear whatever lies Liam had prepared. I didn't care what explanations Chloe would offer. Whatever existed between us died in that cafe, along with any trace of the person I used to be. The night air felt sharp against my skin as I walked home. My hands shook, my legs weak, but I made it. Every step felt heavier than the last. Once inside, I locked the door behind me, slid down to the floor, and let the silence wrap around me. It was over. The life I thought I had, the people I thought loved me, the future I believed in, it was all gone. And yet, for the first time in months, the pretending was done. There was no more guessing, no more lies. Only truth, as ugly and merciless as it was. And now, it was mine to do with as I pleased. I didn't answer a single call that night. The phone rang nonstop, Liam's name, Chloe's, then Liam again. Voicemails stacked up, each one more desperate than the last. Apologies, explanations, pathetic attempts at damage control. I didn't need to hear a word of it. They meant nothing now. The truth was out, and whatever thread connected us had snapped. There was no fixing what they broke. Morning light didn't bring clarity. It only made everything sharper, clearer. The bed felt too big, the house too quiet. Every room held a memory I didn't want. The photo from our honeymoon mocking me from the wall, Chloe's leftover cardigan on the couch, a text she'd sent days ago about a movie we should watch. Everything ordinary now felt toxic. I spent hours walking through the house, gathering things that belonged to both of them. A necklace Liam bought me after a fight. A bracelet Chloe gave me on my last birthday. Souvenirs of lies. I didn't cry. I was past that. There's a point where pain burns itself out and leaves something harder behind. I boxed their things, sealed them away like a crime scene. Every photo, every gift, every note. The more I packed, the lighter I felt. Grief was giving way to clarity. And I realized it wasn't just about them. It was about me. The part of me that let things slide. That believed too easily. That made excuses because it was easier than confrontation. I replayed every moment I should have questioned. The night Liam came home with lipstick on his shirt, and I convinced myself it was Chloe's hug goodbye. The weekend Chloe cancelled our girls' trip because of a sudden migraine, only for Liam to claim a work trip the same day. The way they exchanged looks when they thought I wasn't watching. All the signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. The hardest part wasn't losing them. It was facing myself. Admitting how much of my life had been built on denial. I was the woman who defended my marriage to anyone who doubted it. Who told friends Chloe was family. I lied to myself harder than anyone else ever could. And now, it was time to stop. By afternoon, I called my lawyer. Divorce wasn't a question. It was a necessity. I told him everything, down to the voicemail, the texts, the pregnancy. He listened, said he was sorry, and promised to make it quick and clean. I didn't want a drawn-out battle. I didn't need revenge. I wanted my life back. Next was my parents. My mother cried. My father's voice hardened with quiet fury. They asked if I was okay. I lied and said I was. Because in some ways, I was better than okay. For the first time, the weight of pretending was gone. I told them not to reach out to Liam or Chloe. I didn't want anyone trying to mediate, to beg for forgiveness on their behalf. I wasn't interested in reconciliation. The past was dead, and I was done carrying its corpse. The world felt different that day. Sharper, colder, but honest. Strangers in the grocery store, cars passing by, people laughing on sidewalks. They all moved in a world untouched by my disaster, and I envied them for it. But I also envied no one, because now, I was free. When Liam showed up at the house, I didn't answer the door. He knocked, called my name, begged through the wood. I sat on the other side, listening. He talked about mistakes, about confusion, about loving me. Lies and different packaging. I could hear the panic in his voice, like a man clinging to a life he'd already destroyed. He swore the baby didn't change anything. That he wanted to fix it. The same man who said he'd stay with his affair for now. I let him talk until his voice broke, until the apologies turned to anger. When he threatened that I couldn't just erase him, I smiled. I slid the divorce papers under the door. His voice cracked reading them. The final blow delivered not in shouting or tears but in ink on paper. He didn't knock again. I heard his footsteps retreat, the engine of his car starting, then silence. The house was mine again. And it felt different now. Not empty, but open. I blocked both their numbers. Deleted the voicemails. Erased the texts. I wasn't keeping souvenirs of betrayal. The chapter was closed. The scars would stay, but the story was done. That night, for the first time in months, I slept. Not because the pain was gone, but because I wasn't afraid of it anymore. It sat with me, but it didn't own me. I dreamed of nothing. No faces, no voices, just peace. And in the morning, I woke up to sunlight through the curtains and the quiet hum of a house no longer haunted by their presence. I made coffee, sat in my favorite chair, and let myself feel everything. The grief, the anger, the loss. But also the pride. Because I didn't fall apart. I didn't beg. I didn't chase people who showed me exactly who they were. I stood up, faced it, and walked away. And in a world where people cling to the wreckage of bad love, that was a victory. I didn't need to get even. Life would handle that in its own way. People like Liam and Chloe always think they win because they leave wreckage behind. But what they never see coming is the strength of the ones they betray. I wasn't broken. I was rebuilding. And this time, without them. A week passed before Chloe reached out again. This time, it wasn't a call or a text. It was a letter, left at my front door in an envelope with my name scrawled on it like we were teenagers passing notes in class. For a split second, I considered burning it without reading, but something in me needed to see what lies she tried to spin now. I opened it slowly, bracing for apologies I'd never believe. She wrote about how she never meant for it to happen. How it started when she was lonely and Liam was drunk, and how she told herself it was a mistake, but it kept happening. She blamed herself, blamed him, blamed circumstances, but nowhere in those pages did she take real responsibility. She mentioned the pregnancy like it was an afterthought, a consequence she never wanted but couldn't undo. She claimed she wasn't asking for forgiveness, only understanding. I laughed out loud by the time I finished. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. The same selfish thread running through every word. She didn't miss me. She missed the comfort of being my friend while taking what she wanted behind my back. The letter was less about apology and more about easing her own guilt. It didn't work. I threw it away, sealed up the garbage bag, and took it straight outside. I wasn't keeping remnants of betrayal around like souvenirs. My life was cleaner without them, And every day it got easier to remember who I was before all of this. Friends I hadn't spoken to in months started reaching out. Word had spread faster than wildfire, and while some just wanted the gossip, a few offered genuine support. I let them in cautiously, one by one. I didn't need a crowd, just people who never made me question their loyalty. The ones who showed up quietly, without fanfare, who asked how I was instead of what happened. One of them, Mia, sat with me one evening, sipping wine and asking the only question no one else had dared. "Do you still love him?" The words hung heavy between us. I thought about it longer than I expected. Love doesn't switch off like a light. It fades, it decays, it rots away piece by piece until one day you realize you don't feel it anymore. I told her no. Not the kind of love that mattered. Maybe I loved the memory of what I thought we had, or the idea of who he pretended to be. But the man I married? That man didn't exist. The hardest part was accepting how much time I'd wasted on people who didn't deserve it. Years of loyalty, kindness, holidays, birthdays, tears over meaningless arguments, all given to two people who would have discarded me without a thought if I hadn't caught them first. That was a lesson I wouldn't forget. I started making changes. Small ones at first. Rearranging the house, getting rid of furniture they'd picked out. Repainting the bedroom in a color I loved but Liam always hated. Buying new sheets, new dishes, new music for the background of my life. Little pieces of control taken back, one by one. It felt good, powerful in a quiet way. Then came the bigger steps. Meeting with my lawyer again to finalize the divorce terms. I made it clear I didn't want anything but my house and my name back. No joint accounts, no spousal support, no drawn-out drama. I wanted him gone cleanly. Liam tried stalling, sending word through mutual contacts about wanting to talk, work things out, see me one last time. I declined every time. There was nothing left to say. The day the papers were signed, I felt lighter. Not happy exactly. It wasn't that kind of story. But unburdened. Like carrying a weight so long you forget it's there, and suddenly your back straightens when it's lifted. It didn't fix everything, but it was a start. I began sleeping better. Eating again. Laughing at things that had nothing to do with them. I wasn't pretending anymore, and the freedom in that was addictive. The betrayal didn't define me. It shaped me, maybe, left scars I'd carry, but it didn't own me. People kept asking what I'd do if Chloe kept the baby, if Liam stayed with her, if they tried to come back around years later pretending none of it happened. The answer was simple: I didn't care. Their lives weren't mine to monitor anymore. Whatever wreckage they made of themselves, it wasn't my business. The only thing I cared about was never letting people like that close enough to hurt me again. I made a promise to myself. No more excuses for bad behavior. No more second chances for people who showed me their true faces. I'd rather be alone in peace than surrounded by fake smiles and shallow loyalty. And maybe one day, someone would earn a place in my life again, but it wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't be out of loneliness. It would be because they proved themselves worthy. Until then, I was enough. That was the lesson in all of it. I was always enough. Even when they made me doubt it, even when they made me feel small, invisible, disposable. They broke their promises, not my worth. And walking away wasn't weakness. It was the strongest thing I'd ever done. A month passed, and not once did I feel the urge to check up on them. I didn't search their names. I didn't ask mutual friends. I didn't wonder how their relationship was going or if the pregnancy had progressed. Curiosity about people who betrayed you is just another form of emotional self-harm. I was done bleeding for them. I started therapy. Not because I was falling apart, but because I wanted to understand why I tolerated what I did for so long. I didn't want to carry those patterns into the next chapter of my life. The sessions were tough. Some days I left angry. Other days I left numb. But little by little, I unpacked the lies I'd told myself, the myth that staying in a marriage, no matter how flawed, made me stronger. The belief that being the bigger person meant staying silent. The idea that loyalty meant turning a blind eye. I learned that love without respect is just dependence. That trust, once broken deliberately, isn't something you owe someone again. I saw clearly how I'd shrunk myself to keep the peace, how I'd ignored red flags to maintain the illusion of stability. How I'd made excuses for their behavior because the truth would have hurt too much to confront. One session, I talked about the moment I heard that voicemail. The way my breath left my body. The burn behind my eyes. The numbness in my hands. My therapist asked me not what I felt about them, but what I felt about myself in that moment. And that was the question that cut deepest. Because the truth is, I felt like a fool. Not for being betrayed, but for loving so hard, so blindly, that I didn't see the cliff edge I was sprinting toward. That's when I knew the healing wasn't just about forgetting them. It was about forgiving myself. For trusting too easily. For giving too much. For staying too long. Forgiveness wasn't a gift to them, it was the closure I owed myself. I wrote myself a letter. Not one I planned to read aloud or post anywhere. Just something raw, honest, unfiltered. I wrote about who I was before they broke me. Who I became when I picked myself up. Who I never wanted to be again. I wrote down the things I'd allowed, the boundaries I would never again compromise, the parts of myself I was proud of for surviving. Then I burned the letter. Watched the flames consume it, and felt the weight in my chest lessen. Somewhere in the middle of all this, I rediscovered the things that made me feel alive. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. Not for anyone else, not for display, just for me. I filled canvases with color, with chaos, with whatever emotions didn't fit into words. I took a weekend trip alone, something I never had the courage to do before. I sat by the ocean, listening to waves that didn't care about heartbreak, and felt small in the best possible way. I met new people cautiously. Not looking for romance, but connection. Conversations without hidden motives. Simple laughter over coffee. Friendship without the weight of shared betrayal. It reminded me that the world wasn't full of people like Liam and Chloe. That kindness still existed. That not everyone was out to take something from me. And slowly, I began trusting again. Not blindly. Not fully. But enough to let the door crack open. Enough to believe that while some people wreck your world, others help you rebuild it. I didn't need someone to complete me. I was already whole. But I wasn't afraid of letting someone walk beside me, if they earned it. The biggest transformation was internal. I stopped explaining myself. Stopped justifying my boundaries. Stopped apologizing for choosing peace over people. I no longer felt guilty for cutting off toxicity. I stopped believing that loyalty meant self-destruction. My worth wasn't tied to being someone's wife, someone's best friend, someone's support system. It was mine, and mine alone. I kept the divorce certificate in a drawer, not as a reminder of pain, but as a symbol of freedom. A contract closed. A chapter ended. I didn't hate Liam. I didn't hate Chloe. Hatred would still give them space in my life. I felt nothing for them, and that was more powerful than rage. Sometimes I'd remember little moments, the way Liam used to kiss my forehead, the inside jokes Chloe and I shared. And I'd let them pass without clinging. They were ghosts. Shadows of people who no longer existed in my world. I didn't have to erase the memories to move on. I just had to stop feeding them. Healing wasn't a straight line. Some mornings, I woke up feeling strong. Others, I stared at the ceiling and wondered how I let it all happen. But every day, I made a choice to keep walking. To keep showing up for myself. To keep choosing a life that didn't revolve around people who saw me as disposable. I wasn't broken. I was just beginning. A few months passed, and the dust finally began to settle. Life started to look like something I could manage, something I could control again. I woke up to mornings without the constant hum of anxiety. I stopped bracing myself for phone calls I didn't want to answer. No more wondering if someone would show up at my door, demanding explanations or begging for forgiveness. The silence was welcome. It was my peace. The hardest part was seeing my reflection. Not in the mirror, but in the eyes of others. People who knew what happened, people who whispered behind my back, people who thought they understood the full picture. I'd learned something valuable. Others' opinions of me no longer mattered. What mattered was how I saw myself. There were days when the loneliness crept in. I wasn't immune to it, and I wasn't ashamed to admit it. Some nights, I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what it would be like to have someone to come home to share my victories and my defeats with, to have someone who understood my quiet. But then I'd remind myself, this was better. This was freedom. There was no space for anyone who wouldn't honor me the way I deserved. The people around me tried to help, each in their own way. Some sent flowers. Some sent well-meaning advice. Others, like my mother, just sat with me, not saying anything at all. I didn't need the pity. I didn't need the words. I needed silence, space, time to breathe. Eventually, I did go out with friends again. I allowed myself to laugh without guilt. I allowed myself to feel something other than hurt or anger. I took small steps back into the world, trying new things, rediscovering parts of myself that I had hidden away. It was like learning to live again. But this time, I was doing it for me. Not for anyone else. As the weeks passed, Chloe tried to reach out once more. A text. A voicemail. But it wasn't anything new. No real apology, just another plea for my forgiveness, another attempt at re-entering my life. I ignored it. She had already made her choice. She made it long before the affair came to light. She showed me who she was when she stepped into that role in my life. There was nothing left to discuss. Liam, on the other hand, tried harder. He reached out through friends. Through email. He even showed up at my workplace. He couldn't let it go. He wanted to talk. He wanted answers. And he was angry that I wasn't fighting for him, that I wasn't begging him to stay. He wanted me to want him back, to somehow fix what he had broken. At first, I felt a flicker of guilt. Maybe I should listen. Maybe I owed him something. But that was the old me, the one who thought love meant never walking away, even when it hurt. The new me understood that love isn't about clinging to something that's already fallen apart. It's about recognizing when it's time to let go. I told him once, over the phone, that I had nothing left to say to him. I reminded him that I wasn't his second chance. I wasn't anyone's safety net. He didn't understand. He argued. He tried to manipulate. But I stayed firm, and after that call, he never reached out again. The finality of it didn't bring relief, but it did bring closure. And then, slowly, I started meeting people again. Not in search of anything serious, just to reconnect with the idea of intimacy, genuine, healthy intimacy. The kind that's rooted in respect and mutual trust. A few dates, casual conversations, nothing heavy. It was an experiment in seeing if I could allow someone new into my life without fear. I wasn't ready for anything long-term. Not yet. But the experience reminded me of something important. I didn't need to settle. I wasn't looking for a rebound. I was looking for something real, something worthy of my time and energy. Something that didn't involve lies, betrayal, or disappointment. The most important thing I learned, though, was that I didn't need a partner to feel whole. The idea that I had to find someone to complete me had been part of my conditioning, but it wasn't true. I was complete. I was whole. I was strong enough on my own, and if someone was ever going to join me, there would have to be someone who added to my life, not someone who filled a void. I continued working on myself, mentally, emotionally, and physically. I set new goals. I reached for new dreams. I found joy in my independence. I found power in the small victories, in the freedom of walking away from everything that once defined me. My past no longer held power over me. And then, one day, I woke up with a realization. I had nothing left to prove. To Liam. To Chloe. To anyone. I had survived the worst of it, and I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. The weight of betrayal no longer weighed me down. It no longer had any say in my future. I was free. More than that, I was empowered. I didn't need their validation anymore. I didn't need their apologies. What I needed was to keep moving forward, to honor myself, and to embrace the future with open arms. Life would offer me new challenges, new hurdles, new people. But I would face them as I was now, stronger, smarter, and completely unafraid of choosing myself first. Because the only person who needed to believe in my worth was me.